Ankle the Witch by Roy Trumbull, Creative Commons copyright 2011, some rights reserved. Ankle was a witch, and she was pretty certain she'd always been a witch, but even she admitted that she didn't trust her memories for more than 200 years. She remained true to the witch's tradition of dressing in black and wearing a pointed hat whenever she left her cottage in the woods. In the morning, she'd gargle with some warm salt water and then practice her cackle while she fixed breakfast. That done, she was off up to her ankles in the creeks and streams, collecting eye of newt, tongue of frog, and in the early evening she'd use her hat to catch a stray bat or two. Someone always needed a witch. There were hexes to be placed on one's rivals, lovers needing love potions, farmers needing rain, maidens wanting their fortunes told, and so on. One spring, business just sort of dried up, and she didn't know why. She took out her iron cauldron and built a fire and carefully added ingredients to make a mirror of places. Then she gazed in the liquid and stirred it slowly and called upon the spirits that served her. The wavering surface steadied, and she saw the lobby directory of tenants in a new high-rise office building. Suite 1313 read Zarpy, Fortunes Told. So that was it. Another witch was poaching on her territory. Fortunes Told was understood by all to mean magic practiced here. She sent out Cinder the Crow to spy out what was going on and report back. Zarpy, the new witch who rented the suite, was fresh out of witches' college and up to date on all the latest magic. She wore bright print dresses and her hair was attractively styled. She could easily have passed for a businesswoman. Instead of a bubbling cauldron over a fire, she had a small electric stove and a saucepan. She didn't go slogging through the stream beds either. She bought all the ingredients needed for her magic at Witch Mart. Her most prominent client was the Princess Irene, who'd been having trouble with her family accepting her true love, Prince Brian. Zarpy had consulted her copy of the Merlin Manual and found the Potion of Harmony. Unlike Ankle, who would have taken a certain pleasure in combining some truly disgusting things and watching the awful faces made by her client as they were mixed, Zarpy put the nasty things into a blender and added 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream and a dollop of chocolate sauce, thus making an enchanted frap for the princess to drink. It worked. As a result, many in the court now went to Zarpy for their magic. When Cinder the Crow returned to Ankle and reported what he had seen and heard, Ankle was furious. Why, that young hussy and her book learning and computer nonsense. I'll teach her to trifle with me. So, the Princess Irene is coming to her. Well, we'll see about that. Ankle raised her voice and made an awful screeching sound, and within minutes the King of Crows was at her door. Call the flock together. You must help me gather the ingredients for a spell not done these past 500 years. That done, she cried for the great horned owl, to whom she gave a list of things only to be found in the darkest nights in the deepest woods. Ankle felt really good about working on this spell. It had been her grandmother's favorite. Neither Zarpy nor Princess Irene were at all aware of what Ankle was doing. But 2 days later, all dressed in her beautiful clothes, Princess Irene suddenly found herself on a road rutted with wheel tracks and watching where she stepped, but having no idea who she was or where she was or how she'd gotten there. Far away, Ankle stared into her cauldron. The liquid shimmered and showed her the princess. She thoroughly enjoyed what she saw and chuckled softly as she ate her morning bowl of cream of frogs. Zarpy first learned that Princess Irene had vanished when Prince Brian came to her. His first thought was that the princess had been kidnapped or had met with some other sort of foul play, but all that had been thoroughly investigated and ruled out. Then, he said, when they were checking the princess's chambers, a raven had flown in the window holding a branch with a flower on it. They didn't think anything of it at the time, but he'd brought the flower for her to see. It looked vaguely familiar to Zarpi. She signed on to Wikipedia and looked it up. It was the flower of forgetfulness. It wasn't a natural flower. It could only be conjured from the depths of the deepest of dark places. It was a certain sign that magic had been used to make the Princess Irene vanish. A good wife coming home from market day chanced upon the princess and asked if she was lost. "I guess I am. I don't know where I am, and I'm not very sure I know who I am." The good wife, whose name was Thelma, looked her over and said, "From your fine clothes, I'd say you're a princess, or maybe a lady in waiting to a princess." Irene responded, "I like the idea of being a princess, but a princess of what?" Thelma frowned. "I'm afraid I don't know. We're fresh out of kings and queens in these parts, and I don't think there's a castle to be found. Now, when it comes to sheep, we have plenty of them. Just look around you." The princess looked, and in the surrounding meadows there must have been hundreds, if not thousands, of sheep. Good wife Thelma then asked the Princess Irene, "What can you do?" The princess gave her a sort of blank stare. If she was a princess, she thought, what did a princess do? Then she said, "I don't suppose out here in the country you have much need for someone to attend teas and grand parties." Thelma gave a shake of her head and said, "Certainly not. When I asked you what you can do, I was thinking more along the line of milking cows, tending geese, sweeping, cooking, or spinning sheep's wool into yarn." As each of these was mentioned, the princess frowned, as none of these common tasks was likely ever done by a princess. But then she said, "I might know how to spin." Thelma smiled. "I hope you can, for the oil in the wool will preserve the smooth skin of your dainty hands. Doing the other work would have you looking like us in a fortnight." Many miles, and perhaps even years from the Princess Irene, Zarpi considered what to do. She had several mentors at the witches' college she could call on, but first she must understand the nature of the spell. Down in a run-down industrial park nearby was a building bearing the sign, "Used Typewriters." It was the workshop of Isaac the Wise. The sign gave him all the privacy he needed. No one wanted a typewriter, used or otherwise. Isaac and his many teenage interns collected cast-off computers and networked the circuitry in supernatural ways. One of the fruits of their tinkering was the portable WCS. It sensed the presence of magic and could produce a map showing the location of witches casting spells. Zarpi came to Isaac to find out what he knew. "I thought I'd see you," he said. "Something really big happened in the last 24 hours. "Can you pinpoint it?" she asked. "Yes," he responded. "It came from about 5 miles out of town, off in the deep woods." She looked surprised. "I didn't know there was a witch or wizard down there." Isaac pulled out a very old copy of the Witch's Desk Reference. Some of the pages were falling out of the binding. He blew the dust off and turned the pages slowly. A few minutes later, he let out a low whistle and said, "Oh, boy. According to this, the deep woods is where Ankal the witch makes her home." Zarpi sat down suddenly. She realized she'd set up shop in the territory of one of the most powerful and cunning witches the world had ever known. She also knew she had little chance of begging her forgiveness. Ankal was known to be stubborn. She could have taken the Princess Irene anywhere. This was going to be most difficult and promised to lead to a depth of magic she wasn't sure she could master.